Hi guys, and welcome back to another IBRACORP video. Thanks for coming back and checking out the channel today. Absolute pleasure to have you here. Just want a quick shout out to all of our supporters, both on our website and in Discord. We really appreciate your financial support for the channel. Thank you to everyone who's chosen to donate to us and sign up as a member. Really helps us give back to you, and I hope the content is reflective of that as well. So guys, as you know, we've covered request apps for your media server 2 times before, and that's with the 2 other big players of the media request industry. That's overseerr and petio. The one we haven't covered yet and has actually been around the longest is the OG Ombi. Now you may have used Ombi before. If you haven't, we're going to walk you through it today. It's a really cool request app, and it has some advantages over the other apps that aren't really known that well, which helps differentiate it between other requesting platforms. So big props to the developers here at Ombi. I'm pretty sure it's just one guy and the other contributors, so thank you very much. And I know you guys have been asking for this for quite a while, so I'm more than happy to put it together for you today and get one out for you to have a look and give this app a try. It's changed a lot over the past 12 months. It's become a very new interface. It looks real clean. So there's been a lot of development. If you haven't used it in a few years, you know, you may have picked it up a few years ago like I did at the time, and since then it's really grown. If you're looking for a request app for not just Plex, but other media server applications such as Jellyfin, then this is the request app for you. So if you're interested, hang around and we'll get stuck into it. So here we are guys, we're on ombi.io, their main website, and first opinion, looks nice and clean, easy to read. Now on their main website, you'll start at the top here where it gives you the option to either download or check out the demo. I'm not going to show the demo because we're actually going to install it, so we'll be able to see it live in our environment, and you'll get to have a look at that. But if you wanted to have a look at the demo before downloading it or installing it, you have the option there. You just click it and it gives you the username, which is beta, and you can sign in and have a play. If we scroll down, here's what they've got written. So what is Ombi? It's a self-hosted web app that automatically gives your shared Plex or Emby users the ability to request content by themselves. I will also add obviously Jellyfin, which is a fork of Emby, is also supported as well. Ombi can be linked to multiple TV show and movie DVR tools. So in our case, Sonarr, Radarr, Lidarr, to create a seamless end-to-end experience for your users. Now you notice there I also said Lidarr, so yes, you can actually request audio content as well, not just TV and movies. So that is also another advantage towards Ombi, which I haven't seen in other request apps. The other ones are focused on visual content, whereas Ombi will also allow you to actually get audio content. So if you're using Lidarr to source your content, this could be the request app for you as well. Now it says here, how does it work? Obviously we have a pretty good idea by now, but if you don't, the user visits the website, requests the content. Ombi will match the request and sends it to the DVR app, Sonarr, Radarr, Lidarr. DVR app retrieves the content and then pushes it to your media server. There's some screenshots there as well, and then there's instructions. Now there's also a mobile app, so that's another advantage I've noticed with Ombi as opposed to other tools. Now with overseerr, for example, it will install basically like a web app, which works really well and it feels like a native app anyway. So definitely a good thing there with overseerr, whereas Ombi has an actual dedicated app on the App Store. So as usual, support our local developers guys. So if you want to thank them and help them out, the Ombi is made by Jamie Rees. I hope I said that right, Jamie, and other contributors as well. So you can donate to Jamie over on his PayPal and their Patreon, help support them for their work. It's really good. They also have their own Discord and you can report issues as well. So there's not much to it here. Most of it's going to be in the flesh and bones of the actual app once we get it launched. So how about we go and do that? Now, I'm going to be showing you guys on Unraid. However, feel free to do the same thing following the Docker instructions on whatever relevant operating system you're using. So here we are on our Unraid server, Osiris, and it's looking nice and ready for us to get started. Just a quick thank you to one of our Discord members, Dickens Cider. Thank you very much for the banner, really appreciate it. Looks pretty good, I think, so you've done a pretty good job there, mate. And if you haven't already, guys, feel free to join our Discord. We'd love to have you. Plenty of helpful people in there, and it's just a nice welcoming community where we get to you know, have a chat and have a bit of a laugh as well. You can always find our links down in the description as well. I'll put it up on the screen. So the first thing we're going to do is head to the App Store. And if you're following along on a different operating system, basically go to Docker Hub or go to the GitHub for the app and follow their instructions for the first part. Once we actually launch it, then we can go from there. Now, if you haven't seen our videos on reverse proxies, we have videos on Nginx Proxy Manager, as well as Cloudflare videos as well. So all we need to do at this point is now look it up. So we'll type in Ombi, and you're going to get a few options here. There's nothing inherently wrong with either of the two options that are showing up, but we're going to go with Mr. Hoshio's repository right here. So you have different options if you want to go with the default option, which will be the latest tag. Otherwise, you can pick from these other tags, which are obviously, you know, for different purposes. So if you want a testing, for example, or a different version release. So we're going to go with the default. That's perfectly fine. Now, once we're on the template page, we will then start configuring some options. So with the network type, we always want that on our custom Docker network. That way they can communicate to each other via host names and just makes it all segregated to themselves. The host port, we're going to leave it at 5000. We're pretty happy with that. That should be free on our system. So in your case, make sure you're using a custom Docker network. We have a video on how to do that. And the commands used for that are the same across both Unraid and other operating systems as well. The app data location, that looks fine as well. We show more settings. There's nothing here that we need to change. We just leave that completely as is. Once you're happy with all that, go ahead and click apply. That's done. We'll click done and head back to Docker. Now here's Ombi. It looks like it's started up. So what I'm going to do is actually move that across into our media request folder. If you haven't seen our Docker folders video, be sure to check that out. It really helps neaten up your system here on Unraid. We'll check the option and click submit. So that way we've got it under the correct location and we can just follow it on from there. Now I've shown you how to reverse proxy many different applications before, and I'm not going to do that here today because that part is a completely separate part that we've already covered. So if you are interested in reverse proxying it out to the web, be sure to do that and follow our Nginx Proxy Manager video. What I'm going to do is configure it locally, so I'll left click and go to the web UI. And here we are, we're faced with our first screen to set it up. So let's follow through the wizard. We'll click next, and it's going to ask us for our Plex information. We also have the option to pick Emby or Jellyfin. And I really think that's an awesome feature of Ombi, the ability to support those multiple media servers, as well as Jellyfin, because Jellyfin is completely self-hosted and completely free open source. So it gives people the option to use it if that's something they want to do. I'll show you a little trick with Jellyfin later that I think some people might be interested in as well. So for now, we're going to be using Plex. So I'm going to go ahead and use Plex. Now, if you wanted to set this up this way and sign in here, you can do that. Alternatively, you can actually just click the login with Plex option. So I'm going to do that now. Once you've done that, it's going to ask you for a username and password. So this will be a local account in the app to allow us to log in without having to be linked to anything else. You'll see here, it says you'll need to configure email to reset your password. Very important, so you can add your SMTP settings later. Make sure you do that in case you ever forget your password. Go ahead and click next. And now we can start configuring stuff. So we'll say request.ibraflix.com for the application URL, or whatever it is that you want it to be at when you go to reverse proxy it. Custom logo, if we wanted to input the URL of a custom logo, we can do that as well. And we'll just paste that there and click next. There you go, so that's the initial wizard completely finished. We'll go ahead and click finish, and we're going to be faced with our login screen. So we're going to sign in using that account that we just created during the wizard and click sign in. There you go, pretty familiar looking interface to some other request apps, and that's perfectly fine. And that's because, you know, it's all about how user friendly it can be. And I really like the interface itself. It looks nice and clean. So you might feel pretty comfortable straight off the bat while using it. But before you get too excited, we haven't really set anything up. All we've done is connect Plex. So what we want to do is actually start setting up all of our PVRs and some other settings. So once you've signed in, go ahead and go to settings. Across the top, you'll see some tabs. So the first thing we're going to do is go under configuration, and we'll go through all these options together. So starting with general, so if you are using a base URL that you want to set up, you can put that in here, and then we can have it set in the application. Then you've got your API key, so very important key there. You'll be able to use that for anything else that wants to talk to Ombi via the API endpoint. Under the branch, we don't need to mess with this because we're using Docker. Just leave it as is, okay? Unless you have a reason, just leave it as is. You have these other options here as well. So if a user has auto approve permission, do you want to be notified about it? Typically for me, I don't. If I've given them auto approve, I don't need to know every time that something has been approved. So I'll usually check that. Do we want to hide the request from other users? No, that's fine. I don't mind my users seeing it. Do we want to auto delete available requests? So once a request has been fulfilled, do you want it to automatically purge the request queue? That's actually a pretty good option. I like that. I'll leave it off for the moment, but that might be something you might want to consider if you find that, you don't need the requests anymore after it's done. And of course, whether you want them to collect anonymous analytical data. Once you all that, if you change anything there, just make sure you click submit and save the settings. Now we'll head down to customization. So again, this is the settings that we set in the wizard. For some reason it didn't save. So what we've got here is the application name. So let's try that again. We're going to say request. The application URL is going to be request.ibraflix.com. Here's our custom logo again. Now, if content is available on our server, do we want it to show up on the Discover page? I don't think you do, and I think that's a really good option to actually hide that, because once you've got it, you don't need to request it again. Do you want a custom donation link? So you can actually put your own links and a donation message there. Really nice feature, so I'm pretty happy with that. And then you've got custom page, so you can actually put in your own custom CSS if you like as well. So I've clicked submit, and now you can see the name has actually changed in the top left. Next thing we'll go to is issues. So one of the first to actually have issues built in was Ombi, and if we actually go to enable, then we can say in progress state and delete issues after they've been resolved, for example. And then we can have different categories. So we can say audio, or we can say resolution. So then when somebody goes to create an issue, they can pick a category and we can say audio, and then they will type, audio is not working or wrong language, for example. So that's really cool because then you give that power to your users to be able to report problems. The next one is user management. So then this is where you have your user importer settings, okay? Now this will pull in what your default roles are set. So think about it from your average user perspective. What roles would you want them to have? So typically you would want, for example, to request music, to request movies, to request TV. You want them to get the newsletter. They can manage their own requests. And that's probably about it. Then for your administrators later, then, individually you would probably set those to auto approve or anything like that. If you wanted any limits, so how much stuff can they request in a certain amount of time, and in this case it's per week, or you can change it to day or month, and that's pretty customizable. And once you've done all that, if we click save and then we go to run importer, that will actually then go and grab all the users that are in your Plex instance or Emby or Jellyfin instance and create them as users in Ombi. Next one is authentication. So do you want to enable Plex OAuth? So that means, do you want users to be able to log in with their Plex credentials, sign in with Plex option? So we'll go ahead and click yes. Do you want the users to log in without a password? That's personally up to you. I wouldn't run it personally, but the option is there, which is always good. So we can click submit and go on. And we have an option here for the movie database. So it allows you to customize certain things in the movie database. Do we want to show adult movies, for example, and any particular genres? And that's the initial configuration panel complete. The next part, arguably one of the most important, obviously, is making sure the media server is set up. So let's go to Plex. And here we've got our Plex options. So we've clicked add server. We're going to click enable and we're going to click advanced just to be able to make sure we see everything that we need to. So the first thing I would do is actually sign in with your Plex credentials here. Once you've put in your credentials and you've clicked load servers, then down here you should have the option to actually pick the server. So here's our two servers that we've got. If I just click on that, that gives us our server information and pre-fills it for us. So fantastic, that works really, really well. Now, do you have an externally facing host name? So this will be an external address that users will navigate to when they press the view on Plex. So if you've set that up in your Plex settings, then you can put, that URL here instead. Now, once that's done, go ahead and click load libraries. As you can see, it's loaded our libraries. We know we've got movies, TVs, and extras, and we'll click submit. So there we go. Plex is set up and ready to go. Now you'll notice that we've just added our Plex server and its information. So what I recommend you do is actually come back to the user importer, and we'll make sure we check these options for the user importer settings. Scroll down, click submit to save, and then run the importer. Now, if you have any other media servers, you can also set them up as well. So you've got Emby, for example, and you've got Jellyfin there as well. Very similar in the methodology, just depends on what server you've got set up. So now we get to set up our PVR system. So let's go to TV, and you've got three options here. You've got Sonarr, Dog NZB, and Sick Rage. I would place any bet that most of you are using Sonarr. So we'll go ahead and click Sonarr. And here you've got similar options to what we've seen before in other apps. So what we want to do is make sure we enable it. I know that Sonarr is on V3, so we're going to make sure we check V3 there. We'll check advanced and we'll scan for availability. Now, like I said, because we're on the custom Docker network, we can actually just refer to the container name rather than typing an IP address. Make sure you put your API key in there. Once you've got that info, click on load qualities, and you'll see that it's now successfully loaded them. So then we can go and pick the qualities that we've got set up in Sonarr. Same for anime. Then click load folders, and we should have our folders there. If you haven't seen our hard links video, guys, Atomic Moves, highly recommend it. Big thank you to Trash. His guides are just absolutely amazing. So it was a pleasure to work with him to get that stuff out there for you guys. Got our default folders there. Then finally, you can click on load languages, and we've got our languages there as well. Do we want to enable season folders? And that's it. Go ahead and click submit. So now we've pretty much got Sonarr set up and ready to go. The same will then apply for both Radarr, which you can find here, and Lidarr if you're using music. So once you've done all that, set it up the way you like, it's all connected fine, head over to the next section, which is notifications. Now, if I just drop down the list, you can see there's a whole raft of options here to set up notifications for yourself. So I'm not going to go through every single thing, but probably the most important one is setting up our email systems. And like I said earlier, it allows us to reset our password if we need to. So click on email and enable SMTP and set in all your SMTP settings. Now, we've done a video on using Gmail if you want to use that to set up your mail. Otherwise, if you already know your SMTP settings for a different provider, just punch them in here and make sure you click test. You know, there's no point putting it all in if you're not going to test it out. Make sure it works. Once you're happy with it, you're pretty much set. Another popular option might be the Discord notification, so you can set up a webhook, chuck in the icon, username, away you go. And then each of these options on the right hand side is where you can pick what it is you want to notify for and what the message is going to say. So you can customize it the way you want, and it's obviously got these placeholders that you can use so that it generates, you know, username is whoever the user that requested it is, or put this issue in and it's been resolved, for example. And then finally, you've got some system options. So you can go to about, you've got any failed requests and what the issue might be, any scheduled tasks that are set to run, and of course the logs. Now, if everything is set up correctly, that's pretty much done. Ombi's ready to go. You can now start using it. So key points that I, again, will just reiterate on what makes Ombi different. One, it supports multiple different media servers. So you have an option of 3 different media servers, which is fantastic. 2, in terms of PVR support, it supports multiple different PVR apps. It also supports music requests. So very important for those who want to use it to request music, are really nice options to have just as an extra. Here's another one that you may or may not know. For those who are using a LDAP setup and perhaps have followed our free IPA series on setting up an LDAP server, you don't want users logging in with Plex and using those sort of credentials. You want everyone to be using your LDAP settings. There is a slight bit of a workaround for you to do so. It works in 2 ways. So the first part is you need to have Jellyfin, and in Jellyfin there is a plugin that you can install that will allow you to set up LDAP connection. That will allow users to be imported from your LDAP server. Then in here, if you set up your Jellyfin server here, you can then import the users from Jellyfin. So it gives you a bit of a way to get people from your LDAP server into your request app and have it all LDAP related. That's definitely something that is unique to Ombi, and no other request application has that support at this stage. I would eventually like to see all these apps actually support LDAP integration. I don't think it's too much to ask for, and I think for those who want to use an LDAP server, it just makes it a lot easier because you can manage users yourself and you avoid the pitfalls of having to rely on the Plex authentication method. For those who've been using Plex for a long time, you probably already know, but it goes down often enough that I think it's kind of annoying. So as I said, guys, that's pretty much done. Now in the left-hand side, we can start going through everything. So let's go to Discover. And in Discover, you've got this little filter icon. So now you can start searching or filtering down to what you might want to see. If you click cancel, you've got a combined list of, trending, popular, upcoming, for example. You can then switch to just movies, switch to popular on each level. So let's say Free Guy, for example. We'll just click on that just to see how it looks. And here's what the interface here looks once you click on an item. You have the option to play it on Plex, which is where we will set up that specific URL if you wanted to. You can also view the collection. So let's say if it's part of a collection, for example, let's go to, we typed in Harry Potter and we've selected movies in the option there. And let's click on this Harry Potter here, and then we can say view collection. And there you go. So now it's going to show us the entire collection of movies. At this point, we can then just click request the collection. So we can have the whole collection added at once rather than trying to search for them individually. That's a nice feature. I like that. Now back on the page again, you've got some more information down the left-hand side, including the ratings, all that sort of information pulled from either TV, movie database or the movie database. Across the top, you have the options to go to those places. You can look at the trailer, IMDb, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. And if you click settings, you can reprocess a request. So if something has busted, you can just resend it again. The next tab is requests. So here's where all your requests will show up. You can have movies, TV shows, and music show up. And you can go by the different stages the requests are in. It'll tell you the title, who requested it, what status it's in, the request status, and the request date. Pretty straightforward. Now the next one is users. If you've used the import function like we did before, then you'll get a whole list of your users. Now what we've done here is click on our admin account. So in our admin account, we can start looking at some information that we want to update. Firstly is our email address. We've set up our SMTP settings. Now we want to make sure that our account actually has an email address assigned to it. So if we ever need to reset a password, we'll be able to use that. If you've imported a user from Plex, it should already have that there for you. Now you can also have an alias, so if you wanted to display something other than their username, you can do that. Of course, as you're importing stuff from Plex, you might want to change the names because you don't want it to go by their Plex name, for example. We can pick the streaming country, so what country they're streaming from. I'm going to say AU, for example. Any specific limits that we want to assign to this user. Any specific quality and route paths that we want to assign to this user, the roles that we want to assign. So obviously I like to auto approve everything for myself. So we're going to go ahead and check most of this as an administrator. Then you have notification preferences. So if you wanted to target this particular person via a particular method, then you can pick that option here. And now let's say they've forgotten their password. They can't get to the website for whatever reason. You can also send a reset password link, and that will allow them to go from there. The other option you have is actually to send them a link, which will allow them to log into the app directly. So if I go to here, for example, copy user's app link, click that, and that's pretty much your user's screen. The next few options, like I said, to donate to the developer if you like what they're doing. As you can see, he says, this is how I convinced my wife to let me spend my spare time developing Ombi. And I couldn't agree more. So good on you, mate. We really appreciate it. Get behind him, support him with whatever you can if you like what they're doing. If you have any new idea for features, they've got the shortcut there, and then you've got the settings, and then you've got log out. So there you go, guys. I hope you enjoyed Ombi. It's a really nice app. It's been around for a long time, and I know I've put it off for quite a while. And the reason was I wanted the developer to have more time developing the latest version because I knew it looked a lot different to what they had before. So I think it's at a stage now where, people should really be looking into it and help support their work. And that pretty much covers the trilogy of the major request apps at this point in time. So we've covered Petio, we've covered Overseerr, and now we've covered Ombi for you guys to make up your own mind and find the one that works for you. If you also want to support our work, we would really appreciate it if you either donated or chose to become a paid member on our website or on our Discord. You can also sign up in Discord as well. We really appreciate it. We can't wait to keep sharing more videos with you. We've got some more in the pipeline that you guys have heavily requested. I believe one of them will be Nextcloud. So if you're excited for that, be sure to like and subscribe, and we can't wait to see you in the next IBRACORP video.